bro. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. How are you, baby?
Oh, tremendous.
Listen.
Just getting ready. I'm putting together my Trevor Lawrence highlight package and trying to figure who my next head coach would be. I don't want Bill O'Brien or Dan Quinn. Let me say that.
I'm glad you ruled those two
Let me point that out. Dan Quinn, Bill O'Brien, not on the Beningo Jet head coach wish list.
I am not surprised. I'm not surprised. What a great weekend for New York sports. The Yankees get knocked out in a very familiar way on Friday night. The Jets are just horrendous, unwatchably horrendous. And the Giants give you a little bit of a tease on Sunday. And before we say anything about the Giants, I do want to relay these stats because I think they're very, very important to remember before we say anything about the Giant game, positive or negative. They have now, Joe, lost 14 straight games to the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. The two teams that this fan base rightfully so can't stand. This quarterback, this young quarterback, is 3-14 as a starting quarterback in the NFL. And since the Love Boat game, the Green Bay Packer playoff game, this franchise is 12-42. So before we say anything about progress or, they're getting so close to a win, you could just feel it. That's what this franchise has been for a half a decade. The worst team in the NFL. I mean, they really have been. They've been worse than the Jets, which is almost amazing to believe.
Stunningly. I don't know if they're worse right now, but they have been. You're right about that.
Not in this moment. They're not right now. Correct.
Right.
But over the last 4 years, 12-42 now.
It's unbelievable how bad they've been. They've been through three coaches. How many coaches they've had in that time? If you include Coughlin, that's 4 now.
And that's why I feel like it's important to almost bring that stat up every single week, because before you try to rationalize any positives out of a Giant game, it needs to be reminded that this franchise stinks. That's what you need to remind yourself, that it's very difficult to find positive things when this franchise has lost 42 of their last 54 football games. I mean, that is almost impossible to do. So that's what the Giants have been over the last 4 years. And to me, Joe, here's where it starts. And actually, you know what? Let me start here. I feel horrible for Dak Prescott, and I know we all do.
Oh, God. So, that was terrible.
Dak. Yeah, that was
you know what? And this is a guy that's been an Iron Man. I mean, I think he hasn't missed a snap since he got into the league. I think he started 68 consecutive games. It took that kind of a terrible injury. It's just terrible. No doubt.
It stinks. It stinks. Sports is awesome, but one of the horrible things about sports is this. A play like this, a moment like this can happen to anybody at any moment, and it felt so innocuous at the time. It didn't feel like something that was going to be as catastrophic as it was when Dak ran for an 8-9 yard gain. So
right.
I feel horrible for Dak, and I feel horrible for Lorenzo Carter because it looks like he suffered a significant injury yesterday too.
Right.
And so that's one of the horrors of sports.
I feel bad for too, Logan Ryan, because it was a clean hit by Logan Ryan. Yep. There was no nothing against. He wasn't trying to hurt Dak Prescott in any way, shape, or form. And I'm sure Logan feels terrible about it, as any NFL player would, as LT did when he broke Joe Theismann's leg, 35 years ago, or anybody with that. So I also want to say I feel for him, because he's got to kind of live with that a little bit, even though he really did nothing wrong. He was just doing his job, and it was a clean hit.
No question. Every Giant I heard last night after the game, starting with Logan Ryan, Daniel Jones, Joe Judge, the head coach, every one of them began their post-game press conference by talking about Dak Prescott. And I think it shows you the respect that he has around the league.
Yep.
And we all know about what the big story was this offseason with Dak, and that's the contract status. Trust me, we all get that a franchise deal pays a human being a ton of money, but every person, no matter what you do for a living, you want to get paid what you deserve. So even if you're making enough money to live in a mansion, even if you're making a ton of money, you still want what you deserve. And when you look around the National Football League at some of these quarterbacks that have been paid, okay, Dak Prescott deserved a long-term contract.
No, of course.
So before anybody says, I don't feel bad for Dak, he makes millions of dollars, stop it. All right, everybody wants what they deserve, and Dak deserved more, and hopefully he's going to get that long-term contract.
He also, and I didn't even realize this, lost a brother who I believe to suicide earlier in the year, which I didn't even know about. So, that's look, that goes well beyond money or anything like that.
Well beyond
that's something that you got to deal with. Let's be honest about it.
He's had a very difficult year, more so than an injury or not getting a multi-year contract is dealing with that. So, best wishes to Dak. I can't wait as a football fan to see him back on the field.
Indeed.
He's a tremendous player.
Couldn't agree more.
maybe this is too simplistic, Joe. This game comes down to this moment to me.
Can I say this before you get to the moment?
Yeah.
Remember last week when I said that the best game this year that I saw was the New England-Kansas City game?
Yeah.
The Giant-Cowboy game yesterday topped that. I mean, to me, this was so far, with all the football I've watched this year, the most entertaining, exciting game I have seen. I have to say that. And I understand the Giants lost the game. It's not about that. But just as an NFL fan who loves the game, and with the Dak Prescott injury, which put a little bit of a damper on it, take that out of the equation, this was a fabulous football game.
It was a wildly entertaining football game, you're right. You know what may have surpassed it, though? If you stayed up late, the Vikings Seahawks game.
I did not stay up. I know. I understand
amazing.
How that game ended. I did not see it.
Yeah,
Last I saw of that game, it was 13-0. To be very honest.
Well, a lot happened after that. That's for sure.
I understand that.
You know, because that game, and we'll get into it later, I'm sure. There's a ton to get into today. But also the gutsy call that Mike Zimmer had on 4th and 1 from the 5.
I did. That is gutsy. I'll say that.
As opposed to kicking a field goal to go up 8, He says, no, I'm trying to end the game. But we'll get to that later. I think this comes down to this. The Giant defense, which was not great in this game, and really everybody contributed, even the great Blake Martinez, who we love, had a big missed tackle in this game on that Amari Cooper catch, I think on their final drive, the game-winning field goal drive. But the Giant defense made a few plays late in the Dallas field goal drive that tied the game up. All right, Kyler Fackrell, who played so well, had that pick six, made a big tackle on Tony Pollard for a loss of 7, and the Giants got off the field, and the Cowboys tied the game with a field goal. And Daniel Jones, the young quarterback, had the ball in his hands with 1:50 to go in a tie game. And when the Giants got the football back, everything else that happened in this game, and we'll get to all of it, everything else to me didn't even matter, Joe, in this moment, because you've got plenty of time on the clock. You had your timeouts. And all you've got to do is drive 35, 40 yards. Right. You got a kicker who's missing nothing in this game.
Made like 350 yarders, whatever it was. At least 2 of them were 50. Was it 3 or 2? Yeah, 350s, right.
First time that had ever happened in Giant history.
Right, that's right.
It came down simply to drive down the field, kick a field goal, and get the hell out of there. That, to me, Joe, it's simple. That's what it came down to, and he failed. He dumped one off to Dion Lewis for a 1-yard loss to another dump off to Dion Lewis, and then he got pressured on that 3rd down, and the Giants were forced to punt the ball away. And once they did, even though the Cowboys had to start from their own 12-yard line, to me, game was over. That was the moment. The ball is in the hands of your young quarterback. He had a chance to have that early career-defining moment, and the Giant offense blew it, as far as I'm concerned.
I thought we might see a tie at that point in the game. I got to be honest with you. But, the Giant offense blew it. And then, Andy Dalton, and what a tremendous backup. I mean, if you can't have a much better backup quarterback than Andy Dalton. I'll tell you that. That was a great signing by the Cowboys. And obviously, with what's happening with Dak, it's going to turn out to be a heck of a move. But, I mean, Andy Dalton and Michael Gallup especially made just 2 tremendous plays to win the game at the end. I mean, Gallup made 2 just phenomenal catches on the sideline where the coverage was there. I mean, I can't even say, well, he wasn't covered, he's wide open. It wasn't that. I mean, he made 2 great, get my feet down type catches on the sideline, and that turned out to be the game winners, really.
No, and I agree. That's
when
why
you break that down,
When you look at that final Dallas drive, they only ran 4 plays, and one of the plays was a mistake. That's when Blake Martinez just missed Amari Cooper. I think he could have sent them for maybe a 3 or 4 yard gain, as opposed to what it turned out to be, which is a 15-yard gain. Outside of that, it was the Dallas Cowboys executing. But all of that would have been irrelevant. All of that wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have happened if, when this offense had the ball in their hands with 1:50 to go, they won the football game right then and there. That was their chance. It's a tie game with 1:50 to go.
That was. No question.
That's because there's so many other things from this game, obviously, and we're going to get into everything.
But the officiating again. I mean, look, the officiating again to me rears its ugly head as the officials hunt penalties, hunt ticky-tack penalties. And, all right, you want to – because to me, they got 2 touchdowns taken off the board that should not have happened. I mean, the fake field goal was brilliantly executed.
Brilliant, yep.
This kid, you're going to tell me that you're throwing a flag on that? And then the one with the touchdown pass to Slayton, which, even Tony Romo, okay, who's a Cowboy through and through, even Tony Romo says the guy's running a pass pattern, and you're throwing a penalty for a whatever they call it now, pick play. Yep. I mean, come on. I had a big problem with that. I understand that's part of the game, but both of those calls to me were bad calls. I mean, that's me.
And it really took away.
And I'm no Giant fan. I'm just, I tell it like it is with these calls. I just thought they were bad calls.
And it took away what was a brilliant, brilliant play call on that fake field goal.
I
mean, Evan Ingram couldn't have been more wide open on that play.
Nobody knew he was even on the field, Ingram.
Yeah.
It was done so well. But, I mean, look, again, we see this every week in the NFL. So it is what it is.
And the Giants to this point, and this is a part of why at 0-5, despite the fact that, they almost beat the Rams, they almost beat the Cowboys, you should be very frustrated. They do different things each week that cost them. They haven't committed a lot of penalties this season. The Giants have actually been a very disciplined team for the most part. Yesterday they weren't. And I'm not just talking about those two that were BS calls. I mean, there was a Marcus Golden face mask. That was a bad penalty. They had that throughout this game, and you can't make mistakes like that. And that's the thing about the Giants. When you look at how they've gotten to 0-5, last week we're sitting here saying, wow, the defense, boy, they look good. Now you just got to get the offense going. And now this week we're going to sit here saying the complete opposite. The defense, for the most part, was terrible in this game. And you know what I thought was the worst display from this defense? And it also involved the penalty. It was right after a play you just talked about, the fake field goal, in which they then had to settle for a field goal. Right after that, their defense allows the Cowboys in 51 seconds to just march down the field and not kick a field goal. No.
Right.
Score a touchdown.
On a very weird, on that play, the old Nick Foles play to Prescott. His last moment really of the year is him catching a touchdown pass, Prescott. Really.
Yeah, the double reverse Philly special, Dallas special from Sid Wilson to Dak Prescott.
You're right about that. That not even to hold him to a field goal there, inexcusable. You're right about that. The Giant defense was terrible. I mean,
it was awful.
And it was not good yesterday.
And think about what contributed to that. There was a personal foul. Colbert was called for a personal foul, helmet to helmet. And it was a fine call. It was the right call. It was one of those cases where the officials actually got it right. And that handed the Dallas Cowboys 15 more yards. They made too many mistakes in this game defensively. And that was one of them. I mean, because after they kicked that field goal to go up 20-17, I'm thinking, you know what? Worst case scenario. If the Dallas Cowboys are going to march down half the field, kick a field goal to tie game at the half, all right, fine, you'll live with it. But to let them go 75 yards in 40 seconds? It can't happen.
Yep. They had the lead late, too. I mean, let's not forget. I mean, with all that said, and with everything that went down, they get that fumbled snap, that Dalton fumbles the snap, whatever happened there, the Giants wound up recovering, and they put it in the end zone. And they get the 2-point conversion. And there was another tremendous call as they throw the old tackle eligible to Andrew Thomas. Who had some problems with DeMarcus Lawrence in this game.
He did.
But that was it, and he almost dropped the ball too. But he did catch it, and that was a great call. And so the Giants are up at that point too, 34-31. With a chance to win the game after that as well.
And that's when the golden face mask penalty kind of began the Cowboys' drive down the field.
Correct.
Look, they had leads in this game. They had a chance to win this game. There were a lot of things that you can certainly take out and say, hey, that's a positive. Hey, that's good. Devontae Freeman looked good. That's a big positive.
He ran the ball pretty
decently.
Slayton had a very big game. He was terrific in this game, Darius Slayton.
And he made some.
Even Ingram, he only caught one pass, but he had the reverse for a touchdown. It should have caught that touchdown pass from the punter as well.
Yes.
But you're right. Right.
The play calling itself by Jason Garrett was very good.
Good.
It was very, very creative.
Yep, something we're not familiar with the team we root for.
No, not
but
even
it was
close.
very creative by Jason Garrett. Yes,
but we're still in this world in which it's a loss.
Yeah, it was a loss.
And I'm sorry, when you lose as many times as this franchise has lost over the last 4 or 5 years, no Giant fan wants to hear, well, we're moving in the right direction. Eventually, you got to win. We were saying that after the second week of the season. Eventually, you've got to win football games. They're 0-5. And just because the Giants have gotten to 0-5 in a very different way than the team we root for doesn't change the fact they're 0-5.
They are. They are.
So it was a very winnable game. It was a game they could have won. It was a game they should have won. But the coulda, wouldas, and shouldas have got to stop. Eventually, they've got to put some W's on the board. And I'm sorry, there is no way that Dave Gettleman's going to survive a season in which they win 3 or 4 games. It's just not going to happen.
I don't disagree with you. It's going to put it in a weird situation because you're going to have what the Jets did with Idzik and Rex type of situation, which I don't think is the most healthy one because I don't think Joe Judge is getting fired after 1 year. Let's go back to the early in the game when the Giants had a 17-3 lead.
Yep.
They get that interception return by Fackrell. They're up by 2 touchdowns in the game. And then it took them like 5 seconds to come back and tie it. I mean, how quick? If you went out to have if you smoke a cigarette and you say, I'm going to go outside and have a cigarette here. If you still smoke, okay, not that many people do, but there are people that do it. If you went outside and did that, and you came back in, you'd be like, what happened? What did I miss here?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, boom, boom.
And think about it. It was the tag team of awfulness. It was Dallas marching down the field with maybe 1 third down attempt and Daniel Jones giving you your weekly tradition.
Right.
Your weekly tradition of putting the football on the ground.
It didn't help that Andrew Thomas couldn't block DeMarcus Lawrence on the play, but you're 100% right about Jones. There's no doubt about it.
Andrew Thomas did not play well in this game. I'm glad he was able
the 2-point conversion.
Yeah, I'm glad he had that moment.
Right.
And look, DeMarcus Lawrence is a tough guy to play against. I get that.
Right.
But Andrew Thomas has not been overly impressive over the first 5 weeks of the season.
No. You know what, though? He's on the field playing. Let me mention that.
That's great. But you know what? Eric Flowers was on the field playing, too.
I get it.
No,
you know where I'm going with that. But anyway, we'll continue on.
Of course. Availability is the most important thing.
Right.
Yes, no doubt about it. But this is like a weekly tradition. Daniel Jones will turn the ball over.
No question.
You can write it down. He will turn the ball over. And we can sit here and say, well, this wasn't his fault. This was his fault. It doesn't matter. Every week, there's a Daniel Jones turnover. Every week. And I really thought on that final drive, that was his chance, at least for the week, to just relax everybody who's a Giant fan. Because the ball was in his hands with a field goal kicker that could have made one from 60 the way he was booting
that is true.
And they didn't even give him a chance and instead gave the football back to the Dallas Cowboys where the defense, didn't really screw it up on the final drive like you mentioned. 2 incredible catches by Michael Gallup where there was good coverage on both. But they needed to win the football game right then and there. That was the feeling I had. They had to win the game right there.
I thought it was going to go. I honestly did think we were going to see overtime there. I got to be honest with you. I don't know if I actually thought that or not, that they had to win the game there and they weren't going to win. But, look, I mean, he had his opportunity. He didn't get it done. I mean, there's no disputing that. No other way to say it.
And the beat rolls on. The Giants lose.
He didn't get it done, and Andy Dalton did. I mean, really, if you want to break it down to that, I mean, it does come down to that.
Yeah, look, give Andy Dalton credit. That was a very good signing when they made the move at the time. You always want to put yourself in a position where if, God forbid, something happens to your starter, your season isn't completely over. You're obviously going to downgrade when you go to your backup. I mean, that's an obvious thing, but you don't want to downgrade to the point where you have no chance.
But you're downgrading with a guy that's, went to the playoffs 5 or 6 times in Cincinnati and had some very good years there, and clearly is a guy you can win football games with.
Absolutely. He's proven
that not a lot of teams have that, let's be honest.
He's proven he can win football games and win divisions. Now, what happens in January, that's a different story.
Well, that's, the Cowboys got to get there. And I still think they'll win that division. I still think when all is said and done, I wouldn't completely dismiss the Eagles yet, but when all is said and done, I still think Dallas will win the division.
We'll get Carl Banks' view on what happened yesterday with the Giants. We will talk Yankee baseball. We'll get to them at 4 o'clock, what happened Friday night and what to do next. And we will destroy the Jets coming up in a little bit, too, as they continue their pathetic Adam Gase quits on his team weekly season that we've witnessed so far. A historically bad season so far.